Scarlet Diva is a very, very intense film. It has almost a punk sensibility to it. What were you thinking about when you started to work on Scarlet Diva? Where did that start?
I started out of a necessity. I was really unhappy and I was agoraphobic. I couldn't go out of my apartment for a long time. And I had a very destructive love affair. But before that, I worked with Abel Ferrara, who was one of my favorite directors. But he was like the devil. I mean, the devil, like Goethe says, is always means bad, but always does good. And this is what he did to me. He did bad, but in the end, he did good because he gave me a strong will and even more anger. And so it was an urge to tell a story and to do something different, to be in control, I guess, and to do something that belonged to me. And my father was very encouraging. He was the only person who was actually encouraging at the time. And I was writing my book. I wrote a novel. And I was writing a totally different movie. I was writing a war movie set on the First World War. And it wasn't going anywhere. It was really complicated, maybe too ambitious as a first movie. And at the same time, I was writing my book. And one day, my father came to my apartment, and I gave him like 10 pages of my book to read. And he was like, "Oh, this is really interesting. I see a movie here." And I was really upset. I said, "What are you talking about? And there's no movie here. This is my novel. It's not a book. I mean, it's not a film." And then it clicked in my head that night. I couldn't sleep. And the movie started formulating itself in my head, and I was really fighting it. And I was like, no, I have to write this war movie. And then the other half of my brain was already working on Scarlet Diva, and I had to go downstairs and I wrote the treatment that night, like a 20-page treatment. And it's pretty much the same structure of the movie. That night I wrote everything. So it was a really urgent thing. It came out of a necessity of therapy and getting better and going out of myself, not being so self-obsessed, even though the movie everybody says is very self-obsessed. But I think I needed to do that and go all the way.
Is it fair to call it a pretty autobiographical film?
Yeah, it's totally autobiographical, even though things that you see in the movie are not exactly what happened in my life. They're different. I had to make them more grotesque so that I could detach myself from them. And the characters are not really one person that I met. There are many people. The writer, director is a lot of people that I met, not only one. So is the producer or the lover or everybody. They're a mix of all the monsters that I met. They're not nice people, but I guess I wasn't meeting nice people at the time because I was playing this victim role. So I asked them to be my killers.
You also worked with your mother in this film, actress Daria Nicolodi.
Yeah.
What was that like for you, being your mother's director, having written for her?
Yeah, well, for me it was important to kill her. That was like the main thing about having her in the movie. And after that, I know it sounds pretty corny, but our relationship grew a lot from it. And we are much closer after I killed her. I had to kill her. I had to punish her. I had to show her what she did to me when I was little, that she caught me doing the dirty things, and she made me feel really bad about it, and my life was fucked up from it. And like everybody will have traumas and mother scenes. That's how I call like the most important things from our past, the things that made us ashamed and the shame of being ashamed. And I had to live these things again and have a little girl play me and look at it. It's really like a psychodrama for me. So, but my mother is, in the movie, she's a drug addict, and she was not that. She's not that. I'm not trying to say that to save her, because I'm pretty straightforward. She was not. She's not, and she was not a drug addict. She was crazy, but not a drug addict.
It must have changed your relationship with your father when you first began to work with him in his films.
Yeah, when I did Trauma when I was 16, well, it started to change. I was still very, how shall I put it, not scared about him, but he was my dad. I had big respect, and I wouldn't tell him about me and what was really going on. I think he's a very intuitive guy, and he could see that I was, problem child, and but he gave me even more problems in Trauma. He made me anorexic, and then in Stendhal syndrome he had me raped, but I guess our relationship grew a lot because of that. We had very intense issues, and most people don't even get close in their lives to deal with the subjects with their parents. So now, yes, we're close, but I'm still my father's daughter, even though I'm a mother,
You said that he encouraged you when you were working on Scarlet Diva at the beginning. When you got closer into production, did you find yourself talking to him, or did you feel like, I don't want to talk to my father right now, I want to do this myself?
Yeah, that's what I did. He was very encouraging during the writing. He would be the only person I'd show what I was reading. Nobody else read it. And always encouraging, sometimes saying, giving me advices on, like, the scene doesn't work, and he was right. He told me that the ending didn't work, but then when he saw it, he knew I was right. But then when I started pre-production, I told him I didn't want him around. It was important for me. He came briefly, only once or maybe twice to the set briefly, and it was good for me. My uncle was much more present, and my uncle is a very good producer, very creative producer, and I'd rather have my uncle around than my father. But they censored me one thing, that I had a bestiality scene, and they were like, you know what, it's too much, I can't. Why? I was like, why? I need, I see this, I need to do it. They're like, no, I can't do this. And so I had only, in the movie there's an image of this woman with a dog. It was very quick. And that was the only, I had to do it. I had to get rid of it. Because once, when I was younger, some friend showed me this bestiality movie, and it really freaked me out. And for a long time I was obsessed. I still see it in my head sometimes. It was something really disturbing. And so I need to get rid of that too.
Did you ever finally sit down and watch the whole movie through with your family, and was it hard for them?
No, my mother watches it all the time. I don't know, she loves this movie. My father, I only watched with him once. Was not really the final cut. One of the earlier cuts, and I sat with him. I was sweating. I wasn't feeling right. I was really shy and embarrassed and concerned, but he was really sweet to me at the end, and said, and he still thinks, sometimes he still talks about it and says that he's really proud that it's made this movie, and that he thinks that this movie will stay and that was a very important movie and very pure in a sense of, um, you know, like a child could be pure in the urge of communicating.
When you look at Scarlet Diva now, are you happy with the way it came out? Is it what you wanted it to be?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, you know, it's pretty much 75% of the image that I had in my head when I was writing it. So it's pretty good. 50% will not be enough. And yeah, I'm pretty proud, even though it's like a life ago. It's really far away. I feel I've grown from it, and so I'm able to be detached, which is healthier. I wasn't so detached. When I came out, I suffered a lot when I had to promote it, especially in Italy. I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with any questions. I take it really personally because it's a very personal movie. So, yeah, I'm happy I can talk about it.
I think also the Italian press has been kind of mean to you, frankly. Were they particularly mean about this movie? Were they?
Yeah, they were really rough, really, really mean about this movie. Some people got it, but it's always like the freaks critics that got it. All the rest were really like the most. The thing that hurt me the most was that they dismissed it. You know, they were like, oof, you know, they couldn't deal with it. And I went into very deep depression, even worse than before starting the movie. I couldn't go out of my apartment, and then I met the father of my child and started getting better. And then I started doing press in France, and all of a sudden, like, all these people were really into it, and I couldn't believe it. All these people loved it, people that I respected, and then the movie came out in France, and it was, you know, went really, really well. And I thought, no, I can direct again. If the movie, I'm lucky because this movie has traveled a long way. I've been to many festivals all over the world, and now, you know, it's been my dream since I started for the movie to be out here in America, and because I thought that France and the States would be the right audience for it, especially here in New York. There are people who can get it, and so that if that didn't happen and the movie was just condemned to be out only in Italy, I would probably never have the fantasy of directing again.
And you talked about taking one thing out of the film because it was just too shocking, but there are some very shocking things in that film. And in addition to wanting to work them out for yourself, how did you feel that other people would react to it? I mean, did you want to shock people? Did you?
I couldn't care less. No, I didn't want to shock people. I wanted to tell the truth. Since I've been, as an actress, through a lot of lies, and I told a lot of lies, and I said lines that I didn't believe in, and did things in movies that were so fake, and that was, you know, it was okay, but I had an ideal of filmmaking, especially after working with Abel, such a manipulative guy, but brings out the truth out of a lot of actors and people who work with him. I had a fantasy of doing a movie that was close to reality, and that even in the biggest lies, that the reality would come out, and that was undeniable, and that was painful, and but to not to shock, but to force people to sit in front of some truth, manipulated truth, and deal with it. And if they want to be shocked, as their problem. If they want to be liberated, good for them.
You have a very striking tattoo that you see in the movie. It's featured in the artwork. Can you talk a little bit about the angel?
Yeah, You know, when I did it, I was 17 years old, and I did it there on over my thingy because I didn't want my father to see it because he was against me being the tattooed wonder. And so this is why I did it there. I thought if I go to the beach, I can put swimming suit on and he won't see it and he won't see it. So I was able to hide it from him for 2 years. And then one day I told him and he was like, he said to me like, oh, now you can, because he knew that I was obsessed with freaks and circuses and things like that, and said, now you can finally go to work in a circus as the tattooed wonder. But so it comes from a painting of Paul Delvaux, the woman and the wings I put on, and there's nothing really symbolic. I mean, it's like everything I do, it has a symbolic thing about it, but I don't. I'm a very instinctive person and active, and I'm not a person who thinks about anything. I just do things. I don't think about it. This is why with this tattoo.
If you could say anything to people who are going to be watching Scarlet Diva, what would you say to them?
That, you know, don't feel sorry for me. I'm not the loneliest girl in the world. Everybody wonders about this. I'm not anymore. You know, I used to be really lonely. I'm not anymore, and that, you know, I'm not a victim, and that, you know, I try to tell the truth. So don't be shocked. There's nothing to be shocked. Just accept it for what it is. It's a fun ride. It's you know, it's a life and it's on. And it's a very sincere movie. That's all I can say.